Yeah, so my name is Shamir. I am 23 years old. I perform poetry around the country. So my professional job required me to make people cry at shows, which I'm very good at. So I'm going to talk about letter writing. And before I begin this talk, may I ask from the audience, how many of you here have written letters in your life? Show of hands. Wow. I wrote my first letter when I was 12 years old. It was a love letter, so obviously I'm going to love it. So at the risk of being humiliated, I'm going to try and perform a small part of that letter for you here. Please do not judge me, I was 12, but I promise the talk gets better. So this one's called A Letter from No One. You're my crush right now. I've known you a long time now, from grade 6 to 8. I wanted to fix a date to tell you this, but I was so afraid I'd run out of things to say, so I'll say it now. I think you're great. I mean, I thought you knew, but every time I tried to talk to you, I felt like I'd evaporate. And it's unfair how to condense 2 years of emotions into just a day. It's like replacing an ocean with bursts of rain. This hurts and pains, but I have to confess, I'm not going to pretend today that I'm okay with being a mess, so I will find the strength to say that I really like you. I really, really like you. Ladies and gentlemen, that was a small part of my very first love letter. Obviously, I've rewritten it to make it sound infinitely better. That was the essential gist. I remember sitting on a classroom bench with that piece of paper tightly clenched in my fist, hoping I'd have the strength to drop it around her. Then I changed my mind. Thought I was deranged and blind to tell her what a 12-year-old thought about her. I mean, I used the words evaporate, condense, and rain to describe the rifle. And that realization shot in my heart like a rifle, because in the effort to be overly poetic, I described my crush like the water cycle. And I had the audacity to call myself a writer. To make things worse, that wasn't the only stuff I couldn't get by, and that was enough to make me a doubter. For instance, I noticed how every sentence began with an I. This letter was obviously about her. Furthermore, everything I used to describe her, I felt like it had been said before. That what I'd done, all that while, was just paraphrase countless useless metaphors. So to speak, as I sat down with gritted teeth, reading what I'd written all that week, the little voice in my head said, "Idiot, just fall back and retreat." For the rest of the day, I sat glued in pain to my seat, wallowing in brute shame and defeat. When I got back home, I got the letter and wrote my name on the sheet. I sat misty-eyed, feeling like my heart had died, and like my mind would melt. Because now, the first girl I ever loved would probably never know just how I felt. The rest of the letter was folded and carefully kept far away to nurse a slow burn. And there it was. It was my first letter from no one. You 2 minutes to judge me without probably the most terrible love letter in the history of love letters, which is probably why I didn't send it. But it was special to me because it introduced me to this incredible world of writing letters, and I was in love for the first time, and I didn't look back. And I remember the first time I tried writing a piece of my heart for my 12-year-old crush. The first emotion I felt was fear, and I think that happens when you're always trying to write something genuine. Fear is dangerous because it throws all kinds of doubts and inhibitions in your head. You know, and what happens is your mind has this self-defense mechanism. It sort of shuts down when it feels like it's giving too much away. So that makes your writing a little weak. So to counter that, I came up with this trick called A Letter from No One. All you have to do is just convince yourself that you're a ghostwriter. Like when you're writing something genuine, you don't have to sign off your name at the end. The moment you do that, you get this veil of anonymity. That's very strangely liberating. And it helps you remove all these filters you otherwise would put in your writing. So the next time you feel a little nervous, just write a letter from no one. The second thing I went through was this beautiful word called Matalan, which most of you probably wouldn't have heard of, but it's best described with an example. Now imagine that you've taken a beautiful picture of the sunset, and immediately after that, you have this little voice in your head says, there have been thousands of pictures of sunsets, right? More beautiful pictures. So what makes your picture so special? What makes it original? And it's that feeling which makes your work seem useless. And worse, it makes it feel purposeless. And as a creative writer or an artist, that feeling can be an extremely dangerous place to be. So when you find yourself in that context, I think it's very important to remind yourself that in the grand scheme of things, everything you want to write on has been written on before. And that as an artist, as a creator, the only thing you bring is perspective. Your experiences are unique to you. And no one can tell your story better than you can. So why obsess over trying to be original? Just write the best version of your story. Simple. The third takeaway that I took from my letter was that we all have this natural impulse of being heroes in our own stories, which is understandable. But the moment you start crossing out the I's and you start giving leverage to the U's, that's when a more genuine, selfless narrative starts to unfold in front of you. Because trust me when I say this, a letter without a name, a letter without a face, always makes more of an impact than one that has individual interests or agendas or motives. The essence of a letter always needs to be more profound than the sender. So to write an honest and absolutely compact letter, remember that you have to be irrelevant. You have to be like Arya Stark from Game of Thrones. You have to be no one. So onto these new observations of sorts, I sort of said, well, I'll try to forget the first letter, so I tried to write the second one. And this happened when I was around 18 years old. And it was my mom's birthday, so I said, why not? So in the middle of the night, I took a piece of paper and a pen, and I wrote down how much I loved her, and how much she was my best friend, and how every night before I slept, the only thing I prayed for was for her to live a long, happy life. Just a few months later, in a small room inside my house, my dad told me that my mom had been diagnosed with breast cancer. And it was then that my entire world just collapsed. When something as drastic as this happens in your life, your entire worldview, your entire perspective tends to shift. And I believe that happens because you start observing things very differently. Let me give you an example. Because I had to spend so much time in hospitals with my mother, I would spend most of it in waiting rooms where there would be hundreds of people who would be crying, would be screaming, would be shouting at the top of their lungs. And all I wanted at that point in time was just a measure of calm, some peace, make me think. On other days, I would be outside the ICU in a deserted corridor where there would be no one for hours. And all I wanted to hear then was just the sound of the door opening, or just surgeons talking to each other, or footsteps, anything to convince me that things were alive and okay. When you have such situations, such extremes in front of you, you learn to redefine words and situations. You understand that every word has a different interpretation and meaning based on how you see. And I think that's very important in terms of observation. A writer who can observe can make and recreate an entire experience for his audience. More important than these ambient observations, the ones that set themselves apart are the human connections. I'll give you an example. I went down to my mom's room after her chemotherapy to spend some time with her, and she was trying to drink tea. And her hands would shake violently and her eyes would go in and out of focus because she was trying to battle the drugs inside of her. This one time I went out to the ICU to put my mom there for the night, and I saw the 6-year-old boy screaming after he saw the needle in the surgeon's hands. And he was shouting for his mother, and his mother was outside the ICU. I think it was his first week. This one time I went down to get paperwork done for my mom's treatment, and the clerk asked me for a bribe to do something that had been paid to do while my mom was in the ICU. It's always the human connections that leave you with the most everlasting, the deepest impacts in your heart. Because we are social animals. We learn to empathize, we learn to associate on emotional, on physical, on spiritual levels with our fellow human beings. And I think the human dimension or the human context is supremely important when you're writing something as personal as that. So when I was shuffling between these two schools of observations, I stumbled upon this letter that I had written to my mother for her birthday. And I told myself that this is probably not the best I could do. And there is no worse feeling than writing a half-written or a half-hearted letter. So I told myself that I wanted to try again. And this time I was determined to get it right. But even before I could start my third letter, life made alternate plans. Suddenly the one person I loved most in the world was getting worse by the day, fading away right in front of me, and I could I could do nothing about it. I just watched it. When the inevitable happened and she passed away, I completely stopped writing. It took me months of soul searching, of trying to answer questions that I had about myself before I could figure out what went wrong. Now when I look back at it, I think I stopped writing because I was so attached to the entire idea of a perfect letter that when it did not happen, I just lost myself. And that's the risk you carry with you every time you invest yourself thoroughly into one aspect of life. You will never understand the true expansion or true potential of what you can do if you're narrow-minded or tunnel-visioned. Nothing will ever change. Rewrite because there are 1,000 different avenues to explore. Rewrite because there are a million different ways to say I love you. And you will never know which incantation works the best unless you're willing to give it a try. The last lesson I took away from my journey of writing letters was that you have to ask yourself very tough questions. Have you truly been no one in your letter? Have you done justice to your muse? And is this the best version of the story that you want to tell the world? Introspect and reflect, because once you send that letter, nothing you say or do will bring it down. And trust me when I say this, there is no worse feeling than writing a half-hearted letter. So at the age of 19, 3 years after I started writing my first letter to my mother, I finally finished what I had started. And if there's one takeaway that I keep with me throughout this poignant, melancholic, hard journey that I've undertaken, it's that to put together a beautiful letter, you have to take yourself apart first. And right now, in current day, I perform as a slam poet. I perform letters for a living. And I can tell you that there is not a feeling that is more beautiful than when you go perform on stage and someone comes up to you after a show, hugs you and says that they felt like the letter was written just for them. And I think that's the most rewarding feeling that you can have as an artist or a creator. I believe that's why you need to write what that is. So before I conclude my talk for today, I would like to leave you with the fourth letter that I wrote my mom, the one I actually managed to finish. This one's for my mother, and it came 2 years too late for me. Maybe it came just in time for me. I hope you go back home and you listen to this, you hug your mother, or if she's far away, call her, you tell her how much you love her, because it took me all the strength in the world to write this one. So this one's called Dear Mom, and this one's for all of you, and my mom watching from above. So I hope you like it, and thank you so much for having me once again. Dear Mom, I remember the birthday we spent 3 years ago. It must have been a few weeks into your chemo, but the scars of your struggle are now starting to show. For the first time in so many years, you and I didn't stay up late. For the first time in so many years, there was no childish, excited wait. For the first time in so many years, there was no birthday. Because no matter what you ate at that point in time, your head was spinning and nauseated. It felt sad having to celebrate your life is so quiet. The next morning, I overslept. So the first thing I did when I woke up was sprint up the steps to your bedroom door. I imagined you'd be sleeping, so I quietly pushed the door open, hoping that I would be the first face you saw as you woke up on a special day. But as I entered your room, I felt this quiet, impending feeling. One experience in the countless hospital trips that conditioned you and I to feel nothing but pain. I saw an empty bed, and a rush of blood to my head said something's wrong. I knew you couldn't even walk straight without me by your side to take your weight. I could feel these hands shake. I could feel the insides of my head throb and ache and about to break. I called out your name again and again and again, and then suddenly I heard mine. Sigh of relief as I immediately turned to see where it leads me. As I pushed open the bathroom door, I saw you slouched against the wall, sitting down on the floor, trying to maintain this fine line between vivid worrying and escalating dread. I just stood there, a million thoughts inside my head with you. You just looked at me, and smiled. typical of you, you know. Every time you knew there was a tension, you couldn't dilute, you just flashed a smile so adorably, hoping I would feel it. I almost did. But I asked him. You smiled once more. Then you spoke. In words I wish I could remember so I could put them in quotes and show the entire world how you saw it with so much hope. You told me how it felt like to be a burden. There are days that hovered between bad and worse. You felt like an absolute burst that just refused to go away. You told me how it felt when you needed me to walk 2 meters or less and how it made you feel absolutely helpless every single day. So on your birthday, you decided to leave. It hurts this heart to imagine how you swayed across the room to where you fell, but for that one day, living in hell made you feel so much at ease. Even if it meant falling to your knees, at least you did it all by yourself. I didn't know whether to smile or to cry. These things you said were like invisible forces pulling me to both sides. I heaved you up, back to your bed. You were smiling, but your eyes were red. I tried to give you this hug, one that you had mastered over the years, one that has often given my tears a reason to change into something else. If only you knew how much I miss that memory. 3 years later, I celebrate your birthday the same way you and I did back then. There is silence, a quiet birthday wish in this letter, an empty realization that things could be so much better. What I miss far outweighs what I have found, but that balance feels so drastically if you were around. Today I wish I could borrow your shoulders to keep my head. I wish I could kiss your cheeks and tell you everything I never said instead of writing these things that you will never do unless I do. And speak those service which it so desperately needs. But I would give to have you live not in memories but somewhere too. Every second wondering what that would feel would suddenly be worth the time. Anyway, it's not about my wishes. It's about how difficult it is loving you from afar. I just wish I could find words to define these feelings of mine and the beauty that was half as perfect as you. I hope you had fun there, for heaven's sake. And that God employs the best bakery to make it. Remember, be as lively as you've always been. Remember to make the icing of the bottom of the cake tin, just like how you always like it. Down here, Dad will raise a drink. We will all keep you in our prayers and think countless reasons you've given us to call happiness. We will keep missing you, even if we are 3 parts of a broken mess. We will love you, always the more. And yes, I miss you, and I love you. Happy birthday, love, Shamir.